Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It is FPC Radio Live. It's Thursday, July the 13th, 2023. And, we're trudging through the slow time. I might have just made up a word there, by the way. I kind of mashed together a couple. It's early, haven't had my caffeine. But anyways, we're getting through the doldrums of this summer of just no sports other than baseball. The All-Star game, which I think we all agree is probably the best of all the four major sports. But quite frankly, John, that the bar is so low for good, I guess, All-Star games that I'm not even really giving baseball credit because, quite frankly, they do one thing that they could do one thing that just would make the aesthetic of the entire event that much better, and that is go back to using the team jerseys. Forget about this American League and National League, like generic, okay, great, awesome, y'all. Just go back to wearing your Yankees or Red Sox or Angels or whatever uniform. We know there weren't too many Red Sox uniforms out there, but you know what I'm saying. Just go back to doing that. And I think just from a aesthetically pleasing standpoint, that would improve the All-Star game, which, like I said, I do admit is probably the best of the four. But again, that's not saying much.
Well, of the four All-Star games, it's played the most like a regular season game, right? You know, there's pitchers, catchers, there's defense. They use everything that they use in a regular season game. My only complaint is there's not enough offense in the Major League Baseball All-Star game because the pitching dominates, right? They come in for one inning, throw gas, and it's a 1-2-3 inning, very little offense. Whereas in basketball, there's no defense. I mean, you got, 184 to 180. So it's not played like a regular game. Hockey, again, that's a tough one because, it's so wide open and the talent level is so high, and football's a joke because no one wants to go. The interesting thing is in Major League Baseball, it also seems like a lot of the stars don't go because the game is on Tuesday, and if you pitch on Saturday or Sunday, you can't pitch in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
I would move the All-Star festivities back a few days, so maybe you could get all of the stars there, maybe have the game on Saturday, the home run derby on Friday, lengthen it a little bit so there's a longer break and you get more of the stars there. But yeah, it's of all the All-Star games, it's the most like a regular game, and that's why I think it lends itself to at least some competitive games.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's not like people are. I mean, maybe this is just me. Maybe because I'm not running to the TV to watch the All-Star game. I can't wait. No. I mean, it doesn't. We talk about great moments at All-Star games, and those are few and far between. It seems like, and I don't know. Again, I think we're just generally down on All-Star games for the most part. I think they've all kind of run their course to the point where it's like, there's like kind of like what you were saying. There's just too many instances where the best players aren't actually out there. Where it's like who was the Baltimore, or not the Baltimore quarterback? Yeah, it was Baltimore, right? The Pro Bowler. And it was just like we're talking about like the 10th best quarterback in the AFC made the Pro Bowl.
Mac Jones the year before was the 8th best quarterback in the AFC, and
he had an okay rookie season. I mean,
at least he played.
Yeah, at least he played.
Guy, I think played like 2.5 games. Like, how did he make the Pro Bowl? Maybe I was next on the line, right?
Well, it's just
60-year-old dude.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just silly. Like, I think hockey, if it were 5-on-5, and here's the thing, it's like the competitiveness, you can't. How do you match the competitiveness of a regular season or let alone a playoff or a Stanley Cup game in an All-Star game? You really can't. And without that physicality, you're just gonna, again, it's like, I never understood people that would just play like sports video games on like all rookie or whatever the easiest mode is and just rip through and just dominate every game, because to me, that's boring. Like, I would lose interest so quick, and that's kind of the same deal with real sports, not just video games. It's like, all right, yeah, great. This looks like a men's league pickup game at Marlboro Sports Complex, which I don't even know. It might have like 25 rinks at this point. I was there when there was 4 rinks. Now it's, what I'm talking about. That big place in Marlboro, New England Sports Complex or New England Sports Center or whatever it is.
It's the size of a small city. I mean, I think you may be right, Ian. It may be 25 rinks at this point because they have these huge tournaments. It's an incredible complex.
I grew up playing a lot of hockey there, and I will say I am old enough to have been there when it first opened too. I remember the very beginnings of it being built. Originally just the 3 rinks, and then they were building the 4th one off the side, because I used to go to hockey camp there, multiple different hockey camps, and then that was the place where my mom got hit in the head with a hockey puck at a Bruins alumni game. I think Reggie Lemelin was in net, as he still is, remarkably, 25 years later. But it's a great little complex. They had the when it first opened, the upstairs, it's you get a view of an eagle's eye view of all the rinks and everything like that. And they have the snack bar and everything, but they had the arcade too, which was always fun. So.
Always good to keep the kids busy for sure. But the baseball game is still pretty good. And in all sports in general, like I think the greatest Super Bowl ever is Patriots 28, Seahawks 24, because it had, a great defense against a great offense. It had, enough scoring, but not too much scoring. I think in 2018, remember that regular season game between the Chiefs and the Rams? What was it, 54-51 or some god-awful score? It got kind of like too much. Like, it was just like, is someone going to stop someone here? And then also you get the Patriots beating the Rams 13-3 in another Super Bowl. To me, there wasn't enough action in that game. Like, you like somewhere in the middle. That's generally where you have the best concept. So not enough scoring in the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, pitching dominates, and then no defense in the NBA All-Star Game for sure.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it really just all leads to the fact that it's just all these things are just kind of pointless. And like I said, I feel like they've kind of run their course, but they're not going to go away. And maybe in football, I mean, we've already seen it go away, so to speak, in football. But in these other sports, I can't imagine it's going to disappear from the agenda moving forward. But anyways, speaking of moving forward, and speaking of agenda, we have the Hard Knocks agenda moving forward, and that is, John, and I know you're excited about this, really excited actually. Aaron Rodgers. New York Jets in the spotlight. And the funny thing about it is, and look, talk about another thing that's kind of run its course, John. And maybe a lot of people disagree with me on this one, but I kind of think Hard Knocks has, it was fascinating the first couple seasons where it's just like you really got into it, but not every team is entertaining. Not every team has a Rex Ryan at the helm. You know what I mean? But I say that to say this: one of the last times it was truly entertaining was back when the Jets were on it, and coincidentally, it was the last year they actually made the playoffs. So, John, is this a good sign for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets?
Symmetry, right? 2010, they made the AFC Championship game, right? Beat the Patriots in the divisional round, which is still one of the most shocking playoff losses in Patriots history. I just remember watching that game going, are they ever going to start this game? Are they going to get going? They're supposed to be better than the Jets. Yeah, this should be interesting. Obviously, like for the most part, Hard Knocks, you have teams that haven't made the playoffs for 2 straight years, right? So they're not generally all that good. Last year was pretty interesting with the Lions because you've got a charismatic head coach in Dan Campbell. Robert Saleh is kind of cut from the same cloth if he is himself, and how much access he's going to give NFL films to really get in and show us what he's doing with the New York Jets. But you generally don't see great quarterbacks in this thing. Brady was never in it because the Patriots always qualified for the playoffs, so they weren't eligible. Rodgers has never been in it because the Packers were always qualifying for the playoffs and weren't eligible. So Manning never was in it. So now we're finally going to see this, great quarterback. So it should be interesting. Look, he could either be great in this or god awful. And it may be both, right? Because there'll be days where he'll be engaged and, he is a charismatic guy, smart, he's interesting. And then there may be another day where he just shuts it all down. So that's going to be the fascinating part, is the ups and downs with Aaron Rodgers. It's almost like a Shakespearean character.
Yeah. Oh, no. And look, I mean, I would have loved to have seen, just from a fan standpoint, a Patriots Brady version of Hard Knocks, but from a football, in the business of winning and losing, absolutely not. And so, when it comes to, agreeing with Belichick on this, I'm 100% behind him in the fact that, yeah, he's not going to want to. Now, he may not have a choice, I believe, if they don't make the playoffs this year. And, if the NFL has an opportunity to get the Patriots as Hard Knocks featured, then they will. And like I said, Belichick may not have a choice in all that. But, like I said, from a fan standpoint, I would have loved to see it. I don't know how much of a distraction it is or can be. I think some of the fascination with the show is also some of the reasons why, I kind of, at the end of the day, it's like I almost feel not bad for watching it, but it does get me thinking because look, they put some very personal and tough moments on the air. And I understand that, like, look, these guys get, these guys are playing a football. I'm not going to sit there and say they get paid a lot of money. And that's not an excuse for, airing out your personal situations, but, cutting players and kind of going through that whole thing. Like, I understand the fascination, John. I do. And look, I admit I'm fascinated by it as well. But at the same time, I always think about it after, and I'm like, man, that's just that's a tough sort of thing to put on camera for a lot of people to watch and judge and react to.
Yeah, you'll have a first or a second year player who gets cut, has to turn in the playbook, talk to the head coach or whoever, and their dream dies unless they catch on with another team and probably get cut again. So, yeah, that's gut wrenching to watch. Someone whose entire life has prepared themselves to be a pro football player, it's over, right? And then that can be really humiliating for the player and kind of uncomfortable for the viewer for sure. I think as far as how much access they give, with social media and every team having, a massive social media presence, you also have to look at it and say that they're kind of trained for this stuff already, right? Even in college, these guys are exposed to the point with NIL that they're their own brands, to say the least. So when they come in, now they're ready for this type of thing. It's not a new thing. They're used to cameras being in their face. Heck, everybody's got a camera with a cell phone. We see celebrations after victories. We got player interviews. It's all up there on social media. So they're kind of trained to deal with this stuff, but this can get really intrusive. And again, the team does have a say on the final cut, which is going to be interesting. And again, I think it does start with the coach. Rex Ryan was perfect for this. He loved the camera. Bill Belichick, not so much. But I think Robert Saleh does have that personality. He's kind of a Dan Campbell type guy, maybe not to that extreme, but, a commanding presence, personality, all of that. And look, this is what everybody wants to see is the Jets because, they get a great quarterback on board and everyone's saying they're going to make the playoffs and it should be fun to watch.
Yeah, there's going to be some off-site segment with Aaron Rodgers where he goes and does one of the weird things he does. I mean, hey, maybe we're going to get a clip of him on mushrooms or something like that. That would be fun. Like, actually, I don't know if the team would want that out there, but perhaps perhaps we'll catch him at one of his next anti-vaccine meetings that he goes to. Maybe that'll be interesting.
It could be George Costanza turning the color of an eggplant.
Yeah.
Remember when that happened and he's in the ambulance?
That's very early Seinfeld. Yeah. Very rarely does it get referenced and brought up, but I do like that. That was the guy who played the healer or whatever. I'm blanking on the actor's name, but he's in a lot of different things. Popular supporting actor. In these sitcoms and whatnot. But there's gotta be something like that. I mean, there's gonna be some off site segment, some sort of in the life of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, like, look, this series is going to be probably 60% Aaron Rodgers. Let's be honest here, and I think that might be even underselling it a little bit.
You would think, right? And again, it depends on his mood from day to day. They also have some other interesting characters on the team. I think Sauce Gardner will certainly be a big part of this. Maybe Quinnen Williams, who's a big personality to say the least. But yeah, I mean, the whole reason everyone's excited for the Jets to be part of this is Aaron Rodgers, right?
Let's put it this way.
Unless if it had been Zach Wilson, maybe we'd see, which one of his mom's friends he was connecting with. That would be somewhat interesting. Like the Graduate Part 2.
Well, let's put it this way, and this is just a quarterback's just dominating thing. It doesn't matter if Aaron Rodgers is good mood, bad mood, neutral mood. He's going to be the star of the show. And I'll give you another example as to why and the power of the quarterback. So the Bucks have started marketing their creamsicle uniforms and showing that they're on sale. Guess which jersey they have front and center? It's not Devin White. It's not Mike Evans. No, it's not Chris Godwin. It's Tom Brady.
It corresponds with the month of December, right? 12.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't they? I mean, if the Packers are going to try to move some merchandise, they're probably going to have either 4 or 12, right? 5.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, look, I mean, they right, iconic numbers, and again, quarterbacks are just the driving force of this. Yeah, Joel says they're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers' family life. Aaron Rodgers goes and visits Jordan and his parents and all that stuff, and
right.
turns into a Jerry Springer show.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, an intervention or in some cases an interruption, for sure. No, I mean he's obviously an interesting guy, and the quarterback does drive things, but maybe back in the day if it was the Baltimore Ravens, it wouldn't have been Joe Flacco, right? It would have been Ray Lewis because Ray Lewis was the leader of the team and the personality. But yeah, I mean the quarterbacks now, and oftentimes the team doesn't want the quarterback to be too much of a personality. He's supposed to be like the CEO. Like I know Netflix was coming out with Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota. They followed those 3 quarterbacks during the season. Any of those guys, obviously Mahomes is the best quarterback in football, and he's got an interesting off the field life. But those guys don't exactly, I would qualify as riveting.
No, and I mean, sure. Trust me, the media certainly is doing everything in their power to make Patrick Mahomes the most interesting, incredible person alive. But I think honestly, Sean, and this is a discussion for another day, I do think the general public is starting to kind of wear a little bit. Like I've seen more and more fans of other teams, like because like there was someone posted something the other day, and I can't remember which account it was, but it was like Mahomes really won all these games, and it was like a block of 4 photos, and they were all like 1-score game. Like it was just like, oh, okay. And one was like showing a 13-point deficit in like the first quarter or something. And we talk about it all the time. Like those type of comebacks just are not like it's so common now because of how the offenses are. Mm-hmm. And it's like I think people in general, obviously save for Chiefs fans, are starting to wear a little bit on the just over infatuation with the guy. And it's like, look, you're right. Tom Brady's gone. Aaron Rodgers is going to be 40. Manning, Breeze, all those guys are long gone. Yeah, he's the best quarterback in the league. But like again, it's I think again, maybe this is just a little wishful thinking, John, and maybe you can back me up or maybe you've seen the same thing. But I do feel like in general, outside of the media, forget about the media, they're still just smitten with Patrick Mahomes. But I think in general, people are starting to wear a little bit on the over the top, like, okay, every single thing this guy does isn't like turning water into wine,
Well, the thing is, if he keeps winning, that's going to continue, right?
And sure.
The thing is, with Brady, at least it was a kind of a slow burn. Like, the first Super Bowl, obviously he was great in the final drive against the Rams. And then in 03 and 04, he was awesome in those games. I always push back when people go, well, those defenses were great. Yeah, they were. Except in 2003 when they played Carolina, they gave up 29 points.
Yeah.
19 in the fourth quarter wasn't a low-scoring game. And then we know what he did against the Eagles. He was pretty much perfect in that game. But there was a slow burn. I think when Brady became an uber star was 2007. You would say, because it was
but here's the thing, he was Super Bowl. He was already, see, and this is this is what drives me nuts, because people have this whole conversation is so out of control and out of sorts now. But like, he was a great quarterback in those first few years. I mean,
God, yeah.
And like, that's the thing. People would be like, "Oh, he was more of a game manager." No. That there is so much wrong with that statement early on that it's just laughable. But this is what people believe, and they will go to their grave believing like, "Oh, he was just a game." No, he wasn't. He was the exact opposite of that. And if I tell you that through from 2001 to 2005, he had the third most touchdown passes behind Brett Favre and Peyton Manning.
Right. 2
players that were obviously much farther along in their career at that point, but also it was Brett Favre and Peyton Manning, Mm-hmm. So, and like,
the league in touchdown passes in 2002.
Yep.
And yeah. Oh, no. I wasn't going in that direction. What I was saying is that he didn't become the uber star in terms of being Favre and Manning, who were like the 2 biggest stars.
He wasn't given.
I'll
I'll rephrase this for you, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree. It's not that he became he didn't become an uber star until then. That was the first time he had an elite offensive supporting cast. I
Right.
mean,
I mean, when you had Randy Moss, whereas, I mean, Brett Favre had a lot of toys to play with, as did Peyton Manning, and now, I mean, Deion Branch was really good, and Troy Brown was really good, but it was a different type of offense. But finally, got Randy Moss.
But we're talking about Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Edgerrin James, Dwight Clark for large chunks of his season. I mean, look at Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and all that supporting cast. It's like, this is no disrespect to Troy Brown. This is no disrespect to Deion Branch. Really nice receivers. But again, I mean, certainly that first season, you're throwing to
David
Patton. Yeah, I mean, look again. Rest in peace, David Patton. I love David Patton, great guy.
But Jermaine Wiggins was just tight end.
Exactly. And it's like, look, this is good players, very nice, but again. So when people say or say like, oh, he wasn't, and I know you're not saying this, but he wasn't like a star until 2007. I'm like, no, he just didn't have the type of offensive players around him until 2007 that his contemporaries did. And look, I think, we can't make, it's kind of hard to make this comparison now. And like, this is something that I think over time we can look at, but people are obviously Mahomes is running the AFC right now. And I can sit here and make an argument that the competition by far in the AFC is not what it was during. I mean, you do not have a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger setup right now.
Well, you're kind of getting there with Joe Burrow. I mean,
you need to win. You need to win Super Bowls, and you need to be successful for that to happen. Right now, we just have 3 really good quarterbacks with one that does have 2 Super Bowl wins.
Yeah, but Brady won 3 Super Bowls before Manning even showed up.
But Peyton Manning was an MVP. He broke the touchdown record. So I mean, he had done more than Joe Burrow at this point. And me, I love Joe Burrow, but like, it's not quite there. And even then, John, we're talking about, you had an era of football that had in my opinion, 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks of all time going head to head for pretty much their entire overlapping career. There was a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end that didn't overlap, but you don't really have that in the AFC right now. So, and when you did have that competition, John, when you had that contemporary, so to speak, Tom Brady, the Chiefs failed twice to overcome that. So again, people want to go on and on and on about, what we're seeing is remarkable and it's great and this, that, and the other. I'm like, it's fun. It's exciting, but let's not mischaracterize what we saw early on in Brady's career. And certainly let's not forget about how great and how rare having, well, first off, obviously Manning and Brady, but then even the supporting quarterbacks. I mean, once we start getting into the quote unquote depth, especially in the AFC, well, even in the NFC, I mean, we're really in a sorry state of affairs when it comes to elite quarterbacks, especially when you consider that, again, at one point, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, all these guys were going at the same time.
Right now, I mean, I know they're younger, but they're pretty deep with
their potential is deep, though. That's the difference, though, John.
Lamar
is
Jackson has an MVP, right? I mean, Lamar Jackson did win an MVP 4 years ago.
4 years ago. What has he done since?
Well, I mean, they only give out one MVP.
No, but that's not an excuse, though.
Deep conference.
It's deep. It's deep because there's. I would say it's a deep conference, yes, because I think that all the teams are competitive. But when it comes to the hierarchy and the stacking of quarterbacks, it just does not compare right now. Now, this can change in 5 years. We can look back and say, you know what? Look, Mahomes won another Super Bowl. Burrow got over the hump. Josh Allen finally led the Bill. And then we can be sitting here and like, okay, now we're talking about a comparative era. But I mean, John, there was a point in time where for 15 years, except for Joe Flacco, it was Brady, Manning, or Roethlisberger. It was those
Right.
three
No,
guys.
yeah.
And all
Right.
of them had, Super Bowl titles. Roethlisberger and Brady obviously had multiple Super Bowl titles. So I think it's going to take some time to get there. And I'm not quite convinced because, here's the thing, John. I'm looking at it as, are we looking at, say, Mahomes and Burrow as two of the top three quarterbacks of all time right now, potentially? And I'm like, well, obviously anything can happen, but like, I'm not sitting here saying that they're knocking on the door right now. So I cannot compare what we saw between.
But in
Go ahead.
2004, I don't think in 2004.
No, no.
Brady and Manning. That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
I agree.
Out, obviously.
I agree. I'm saying I'm looking at this after the fact. So, but
Sure.
what I think people are doing now is now looking at it before the fact, and I'm saying like, and it's kind of like with the whole Mahomes is on pace to be the GOAT thing. I'm like, look, if you throw in a 16 game schedule, if you throw 8 touchdowns in your first 2 games, I don't think people are anticipating you, or I'm sorry, whatever the math is, something ridiculous.
64 in a 16 game schedule.
Right.
68 in a 17 game. I'm here for the math. I am the one guy on sports talk radio that's really good at math.
I always had a great example, and I just kind of duffed it there for a minute. I said so. If you score, here it was like something like along the lines of, say you start the season off throwing back-to-back games. You had one game where you throw 6 touchdowns, and there was one you throw 5. Okay, technically, you're on pace to throw 88 touchdowns that season.
Correct.
But no one in their right mind is going to sit there and realistically expect that. So, especially, again, after 2 games. And that's kind of how I compare this whole thing with Mahomes, because it's like, great, what he's done in his first 5 years is phenomenal. Now, again, we can, you want to get in discussion with Brady, then we're going to bring up the fact that he did not beat him in 2 of the biggest opportunities that he had. But the fact is, like, as great as he is, we're still talking about, all right, you have to add, like, you're on pace for 88 touchdowns. That's what we're talking about here. So that's that's to me why it's a little silly.
I have this discussion with people in terms of baseball. I mean, I'm starting to push back when people. I really push back when someone says Shohei Ohtani is the greatest player ever. He's been in the league for 6 years. His first 3 years were really good. His last 3 years have been otherworldly. There is a guy by the name of Barry Bonds who actually appeared on a podcast yesterday, which is fascinating because he's not been heard from for years. But Barry Bonds from 1990 to 2004, a 15-year stretch, right? So 5 times longer than what is right now Ohtani's prime. Won 7 MVPs, had better offensive numbers than Shohei Ohtani. I mean, not marginally better, significantly better than Ohtani. I know he didn't pitch. I get that, and that's the unique ability that Ohtani has. Barry Bonds also won 8 Gold Gloves, is generally considered the greatest defensive left fielder ever, and stole over 500 bases. So when people say, "Oh, Shohei Ohtani's the greatest player I've ever seen," I'm like, okay, for the last 3 years he's been incredible, but I'm going to put forward a guy who was as dominant, actually more so offensively, defensively, and on a base path for a 15-year stretch, and also contributed to winning. Like, don't forget Bonds in that 15-year stretch went to the postseason 7 times. 3 times was eliminated the last day of the season, and he never played with a Hall of Famer. Ohtani's playing with Mike Trout. So, I have to push back because it's so easy to say, "Oh, this guy is incredible, and it's going to be worth $800 million and all this." It's great. He's awesome.
I mean,
it's the same thing with Mahomes, I think, is what you're saying. Is let's accomplish more before we say that this guy is the greatest thing ever.
And it's not just about accomplishing more; it's about accomplishing a lot more. I mean, that's how far. I mean, there's a bars are set for a reason. Like you don't surpass your predecessor by doing less. Like it's not built on hype and potential. It's built on what you've done, and I think that's the biggest thing. Like, I mean, first of all, has Shohei Ohtani ever been intentionally walked during a home run derby? I don't think so. Okay.
Or intentionally walked with the bases loaded. That was my favorite thing ever. That's the thing ever.
Well, or the fact that he walked more than he struck out, or some ridiculous. So yeah, exactly. Let's enjoy what we're seeing, but like was
he booed every time he got up on the road? Literally, I saw Bonds play at Fenway Park, the old Yankee Stadium, the old Shea Stadium. I've never heard an athlete booed quite like that. And you know what? all the games I attended, I must have been the luckiest person, or maybe he knew I was there. He had awesome games. He had a home run at Fenway, he had a couple of home runs at Yankee Stadium. I mean, like, while everyone was booing, Shohei Ohtani is beloved. Like, he shows up at another ballpark and they cheer the guy. I mean, it's much more positive vibes. Bonds had a lot to do with that. He wasn't the most engaging guy, to say the least. But yeah, so I push back. So I fully support you on that. In fact, I would say Mahomes more than Ohtani. At least he's had 5 years of this and 2 Super Bowls, and I think he can keep this up. Maybe not at this level, but if he's 1/3 of the way through his career and accomplishes 3 times what he's already accomplished, then he's certainly going to be in the discussion if he ends up with 6 Super Bowls. But you got to get there.
Well, the crazy thing is, everything that you just said is like, that's a big if. It has nothing to do with like me saying, oh, Mahomes isn't that good. No, it's just, 3 times you're talking about, playing until you're pushing 40, based on what he's already done. And it's like, even if he does all that, it's still going to fall short of what Brady did. And that's the incredible thing to me. And that's what I try to impress upon people is like, I don't know if they understand the sheer amount of what he is going to have to accomplish just from this point on, and how it's not a guarantee. Like, we look at it. How really, John, how many quarterbacks have played successful into their 40s? 2. Brady, and 1 year Brett Favre had a really good season. That's it.
Yeah, and Rodgers turns 40 in December, so we'll see what he does. Yeah,
and really, that's
easy to do.
And we're going to be judging that based on next season, not this upcoming season, of which we don't even know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing. So, kind of, right there, kind of.
Is he going to retire or surprise us, or
maybe he'll announce it on Hard Knocks.
He should
really.
He's going to tour with Taylor Swift at that point, or he's going to play for the Knicks, or.
Well, before we go, I do want to. So let's open up to all sports and just let's focus on the Hard Knocks format. What team of any year of any sport do you want the most to have been covered?
Okay, I'm really old.
I know, John.
I know. We do.
I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you on a rotary phone right now.
A rotary phone, there at the old age home. Fruit cup is going to be served in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, I might have just dated myself by knowing what a rotary phone is. But anyways,
I miss hardlines. I do. Hardline phones are great. You know what? I do this on my cell phone. It would sound better if we had a hardline, but no one has hardlines anymore.
Yeah.
But look, in baseball, it would probably be the 77 Yankees, because they had just gone to the World Series the year before. They signed Reggie Jackson, and Reggie Jackson was larger than life, and Thurman Munson was the leader of the team, and they didn't like each other. And Billy Martin was the manager, and he hated Reggie Jackson, and you had a boisterous owner in George Steinbrenner. So I'd probably say the 77 Yankees or the early 1990s Cowboys, which I think Netflix is doing a 10-part series on anyway, so we'll get to see that. Jerry Jones gets to pocket $50 million for something that's comparable to The Last Dance. So, that would be interesting. And, of course, the Bulls with Jordan, but we saw that with The Last Dance. But, I would say the late 70s Yankees because of Reggie Jackson, Thurman Munson, all those personalities, New York. In 1978, there was a garbage strike. There was a newspaper strike, and that kind of got them back into the race because there wasn't all that negativity. I'd go with that. And, again, I'm old, but I'd like to look back many, many, many years.
Well, I have an answer that trumps all that. Okay.
Is Donald Trump involved with that?
No.
He's probably a Yankee fan.
Who knows? Maybe he was on the sidelines at some point during the season.
He probably was.
In 2013, but the 2013 Patriots. And
Aaron Hernandez,
Tim Tebow. Yeah. Let's not forget Tim Tebow was on that roster at that time.
Yep.
And, for better or worse, you're coming off the heels of the marathon bombing. And, look, part of the appeal of Hard Knocks is seeing behind the scenes during the off season. And not only do you get really just Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, all the just normal things that you would get with a Patriots Hard Knocks back in the day, but then you add in their murder investigation, the arrest of Aaron Hernandez, the pushing him away from the stadium when he shows up, all these things. That's that would be covered on Hard Knocks. Well, maybe not because technically it's training camp. So maybe I'm breaking my own rules here because I was a little bit ahead of it. But I would say the 2013 Patriots more so than any other team because of all the elements that were involved that offseason.
Yeah, tough to be a double murder. I mean, that's obviously
let's
more than a garbage strike or a newspaper strike.
Well, let's and let's not forget the just over the top media circus that came with just Tim Tebow. And how the Patriots, I don't think this gets really talked about too much, obviously, because, well, it really got trumped again by the Aaron Hernandez situation. But the Patriots nipped that in the butt, like, right away. Like, everyone's like, oh, my God, you're going to have this circus of media with because you remember how it was. I mean, people may have forgotten, but it was ridiculously over the top for Tim Tebow. And the Patriots he came in on, like, day one, and he was already robotically speaking like a Patriot, and they kind of just shut that whole thing down. And then on top of that, they had to manage the whole situation with, well, Aaron Hernandez. So yeah, I'd say the 2013 Patriots would be my Hard Knocks choice.
Yeah, that would certainly be interesting. So many good choices. And again, the thing about Belichick, everyone thinks he would turn this away, give it the Heisman if it does happen, say, next year. He knows how to use the media to his advantage.
Oh, sure.
I mean, he's a master at that. So I think he would manipulate it to the point where it would benefit him, right? Because he's obviously a great coach and a smart guy and all of that. So I think it would be interesting. I mean, we saw Football Life, the 2-part series with him. I found that great. That was so fascinating, and all that stuff I just love. I mean, he's just,
oh, sure,
great to watch. And that would be an interesting case. I mean, the thing too, back in the 70s, the writers had so much more access than they have now, or did in 2013. I mean, they were constantly around these guys. They'd be meeting them in the bars, the hotels. First of all, because the discrepancy in salaries wasn't as wide as it is now. I mean, Reggie Jackson made a lot of money, but I think he might have made $550,000 a year, and he was the biggest star in baseball. Ohtani's going to sign for $70 million, probably starting next season. But all of those are pretty fascinating. And I think kind of, doesn't it start with the owner too, though? Like, obviously Steinbrenner and Jerry Jones love attention.
Yeah.
To a lesser degree, but Robert Kraft likes attention.
Oh, sure. That's absolutely.
That's the biggest misconception of him is, like, I think he would like to open up more. He has these wild parties on the Hamptons and, he loves,
or his Air Force Ones.
Celebrity. Yeah, he loves celebrity. So, he would probably be the star of it because, again, by then he'd be 83. What 83-year-old has a filter? None.
Yeah. And look, this could be coming on the heels of or right in the midst of a Hall of Fame induction too, if they were chosen next year. So,
he and Stanley Morgan made the finalist list, and I'm pulling for Stanley Morgan, one of my favorite players growing up. Real quickly, you know what I was going to bring up during our Brady debate? It's amazing to me that Tom Brady played 20 years with the Patriots, obviously the greatest quarterback ever. The Patriots' all-time leading receiver in yards is still Stanley Morgan, who retired 30 years ago. And their all-time leading rusher, Sam Cunningham, who retired 40 years ago. So Brady didn't even have the benefit of really, record-setting running backs or wide receivers. I mean, that's another feather in the guy's cap.
Think about that 2016 team, which I think, when we talk about, say, the best three teams and Patriots in that Patriots run, 2007, obviously without the Super Bowl, but I'm not going to, 90 seconds away from a perfect season. I'm not going to call it a failure, and I'm not going to pretend like it wasn't one of the best, if not the best season in Patriots history. But 2004 and I keep saying 2016, and it's a lot because of how dominant Brady was when he came back from that suspension. But you look at the receiving core now. Rob Gronkowski went down in that season, so he was not part. It was Martellus Bennett for the second half into the playoffs, and you had a starting receiving group of guys like Chris Hogan, Julian Edelman. Love Julian Edelman, but like Chris Hogan, Julian Edelman, Brandon LaFell,
right.
This is not your, I don't think any of those players, Danny Amendola, is, again, great moments, no doubt about it. But I mean, these guys are sub 700 yard a season receivers, They weren't like, so to your point, like, yeah, it's not surprising that one of these guys is not. Now, had Rob Gronkowski, do they include tight ends in all this? Because I would imagine that guys like, maybe Troy Brown is a close second, and someone like Rob Gronkowski maybe.
Yeah, Gronkowski's up there, but Morgan's still the franchise's all-time leading receiver in terms of yards. I mean, the great thing about Stanley Morgan is he averaged 20 yards per reception.
Yeah.
There weren't bubble screens back then. They weren't the control passing game you had. I mean, Steve Grogan was bombs away to Stanley Morgan or Harold Jackson. And, Morgan would have like 48 catches for 1,022 yards and 11 touchdowns. And people look at that now and go, oh, didn't even have 50 catches. Well, if he played now in this era, believe me, he'd have 70 catches for 13 or 1,400 yards. He was spectacular, and I hope he gets in. But I mean, that 16 team, you're right, because they went 14-2, and they only lost one game with Brady as the starting quarterback. That was the Sunday night game against Seattle, right, where I think they had a chance to tie it up and weren't able to score down near the goal line. That was their only loss with Brady. And then their first two playoff games, if I'm not mistaken, they beat Tennessee handily and they beat Pittsburgh handily. And then, of course, they got down 28-3 against the Falcons, and we know what happened after that. Yeah, that's right up there. I think the 04 team is still the best Patriots team because it did win a Super Bowl, and it was so balanced, right? You had Corey Dillon running the ball. You had Brady at an incredibly high level, awesome offensive line, and that defense is still really good.
And I know, thank God for Tom Brady throwing, I think it was something like a dozen, maybe a little bit more under the 400 pass attempt threshold in the regular season, because if it wasn't for that, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't be able to tout the best touchdown to interception ratio season in NFL history.
Oh, right.
Because that, and this is why I always laugh when you get the kind of the Packers Rodgers honks that will sit there and say he has the best season of it's like, yeah, because he threw, and it's ironic because pass attempts matter now, unlike they did apparently in 2021, or at least they matter for a different reason than they did according to them. But it was 28-2. I mean, and it was literally, I think he had 380 something pass attempts, and the official, he has to throw at least 400 pass attempts to qualify. So we're talking about, like, I mean, he could have thrown a couple balls in the dirt and had that record, but sort of like Aaron Rodgers does, to avoid those interceptions.
Oh, stop it.
Oh,
And on a nice note, will you?
Yeah, I've been very nice about Aaron Rodgers for a while, but I just gotta remind everyone, let's not forget.
You secretly like him.
I know. I very openly like Aaron Rodgers. I just, I just point.
I think you guys would hit it off. You're both
sure.
iconoclasts.
I just again, people have mistaken my telling the truth for being a hater, and I just tell the truth, John. I just tell the truth.
I like that. I like about you.
Yeah, and I'm very honest. Like, was it George Washington? Right? Is he the one who never told a lie?
Abe Lincoln.
Abe Lincoln. Whatever.
Abe Lincoln.
One of those guys.
Honest Abe.
Honest Abe. All right. Yeah. What should I should probably bone up on my U.S. history, but anyways, a lot of people should, to be honest. That's a goal for everyone out there. U.S. citizens.
Former president.
Yeah. It's very true, and a lot of members of Congress. But anyways, that's going to do it for us here today. We will be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. And again, we're just getting closer and closer to NFL training camp. So let's hopefully, I'm just going to go to bed right now, wake up, and do this all over again tomorrow. And then it'll be NFL training camp. That's my plan, John. That's my plan. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.